Hello, we're recording a series of short videos on topics related to working with global capability centres in India, especially looking at this from the aspect of how do cultural differences impact on this whole process. I'm Keith Warburton, I'm the CEO of Global Business Culture, and I'm joined today by my colleague Navkaran Singh, who is the Senior Consultant at Global Business Culture. And today we're going to be focusing on issues around escalation processes. When I'm speaking to clients in the West who are working with their colleagues in GCCs in India, one of the things that very often they say to me is that they get frustrated because escalation doesn't happen early enough. Red flags are not raised. First of all, now, would you say that's true? That's a reality of the situation? And if it is, why might that happen?
Um, I would agree with that. I think, especially from the Western perspective, I would agree that escalations are, in many cases, delayed more than they should be from most of their GCCs. And I think the reason, in addition to many other things, I think in our experience is not usually the incompetence or the dishonesty or team trying to hide anything. I think is very much what are the business norms. And I think, just talking quickly about the Indian business culture, India is a more hierarchical culture than many of the Western counterparts, which means that, the bad news, the issues, which is usually the escalation, it travels much slower up the hierarchies. People usually don't bypass the immediate managers. They can't go straight to their counterparts in the US. It has to be checked. And in many cases, the message gets softened as it goes past every level. So I think by the time it gets to the HQ, it's already too late and also probably too vague for them to take any action. So I think that's one of the reasons. The other thing, which I think is also quite important, in India, escalation is seen as that I failed or the local team failed. There's a reputational risk, which means that if I will try everything in my power as a team or as an individual not to raise, try to find the solution internally before I raise, which again, from a HQ perspective, is already too late. This should have been raised when you first thought there was a problem rather than you trying to 2 days, 3 days before you raised it. So I think it's just a couple of examples that I can give where you can see that there is a definite different perceptions of what escalation is and when it should be escalated.
Yeah. I also feel from the work that I've done on this that the headquarters teams might sometimes unintentionally, they don't know they're doing this, but they actually discourage early escalation by their actions and the things they talk about. What would you say to that?
I agree with that. I think this is where the HQ team needs to look in the mirror, right? I mean, honestly, in the mirror, because these are the behaviors that can unintentionally discourage the escalation, and that can cause operational issues. And I think one of the things which is obviously we all do it, is reacting to the bad news, reacting to the escalation in a visible, it's a visible frustration that the teams can see. I understand it from the Western perspective that the frustration is that the business is delayed or the operations are affected or there's a problem that we need to be fixed. It's purely task and business focused. But India is a very relationship oriented culture where the last thing I want to do is let my manager down or feel that my manager is upset with me. And I think when you escalate to the HQ, which is already late, and you get this visible frustration from your HQ team, I think in GCC I'm thinking I'm gonna not do that next time because I'm letting everyone down, including myself, including my manager in the West. So again, positive intentions from both sides, but the perception is very different. So I think that's one of the reasons why we see the Indian teams, the GCC teams, will hesitate more next time because they think there's going to be a bad reaction in the West. Um, and the other thing which I think the teams in the West do unintentionally is kind of they they think that um, when you give a positive news to the HQ, which is kind of go hand in hand, you can see the HQ team is visibly pleased. They're very happy with the updates. Things are going well. And I think again, the GCC tries to give the positive news every time because there is that visible positive feedback. The Indian teams crave this positive feedback. So I'm going to try everything in my position to turn every news into positive. And I think, when I raise an issue, I never hear from a GCC side, well done, thank you for raising this. I think it's always seen as a problem raising rather than a problem solving. So I think, again, unintentionally, things are happening sometimes in the HQs that discourages the GCC teams from raising or escalating things again in the future.
And so, I mean, these situations happen on a daily basis across thousands of GCCs in India. And is there anything that companies can do at a practical level to try and overcome this issue of late escalation?
I think it goes to what I was saying. I think change the perception about the escalation, right? It should not be called escalation. I think there needs to be ways where they can have a low friction escalation channel or low friction improvement channel where, without having to go through formal process and all the hierarchies, everyone across all the hierarchies in GCC will be able to go and share what things are going well, but especially where can we improve and reward those when they are raised, rather than showing that this is something that we don't like or that there's a frustration. So you need to have this reward system for having early escalations or raising issues well in advance. And I think that also goes along with the language that they use. It has to go from problem raising to problem solving. Thank you for flagging this early. I think that should be the message. The first response. I think this single habit consistently over time, changes the mindset in GCC that raising an escalation, raising an issue well in advance is something that's seen as a positive, contrary to, in the GCC culture is seen as a negative in many cases, right? I think these are like small things where, over time we've seen, this mindset and the culture being built in the GCCs where, they finally match and how quickly the escalation needs to be, when does it raise to be, and to whom. So I think these are a couple of ideas that the teams can try.
Super. Thanks very much, Nav. That's been great having that conversation with you, and no doubt we'll be speaking about these issues in the not too distant future. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks. Bye for now.